Hey everyone, welcome to the week three recap of the Danker Family Fantasy Football Podcast. First we had Adrian, then we had John. Now we have Kerri. Introduce yourself, Kerri.
Hello, I am Carrie Lop, not Carrie Loop, as all of my students lovingly call me. I'm so happy to be here. I kid you not, I told almost everyone that I interacted with today, I'm going to be on my brother's podcast. And they're like, I've never heard of it. And I was like, it's okay, because it's still really cool.
Well, I
So I'm
thank
really
you,
excited to
Kerri.
be here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. I love that you told all your students and everyone at work. That's awesome. You've been in this league. I think you started after COVID, right? Or were you before COVID? Do you
Pretty sure
remember?
it was after.
Yeah, I think it was after. Definitely looked at the league history a little bit. Um, First season, obviously, you were the nicest kids in town, which, hey, great name. Get
Yeah,
all the players that are smiling and looking all nice and happy in their photos. You don't want those mean old grumps who are frowning or just the plain serious face.
exactly.
And
Yes.
then and that team unfortunately finished dead last. So, and hey, what are you gonna do, right? It's your first
But I
year.
should have named it Nice Guys Finished Last. But I
Oh,
should have named
wow.
it.
That's
Missed opportunity.
all good though. You bounced back a little bit in 2022. You were the oddballs, so of course you were only picking players with odd numbers, which, you know, had to do a little bit of work just to make sure, you weren't accidentally picking someone with an even number. So, obviously a little bit of research you had to do on your end for that. But you ended up getting eighth place that year. So you improved from year one to year two. And then last year you improved even more with even Stevens. So the even numbers seem to
Uh,
be more in your favor than the odd numbers.
yes.
Yeah, and that one you went to the playoffs and you finished in fourth place. And I think what was it? You lost to Uncle Tom in the quarterfinals, and then mean old mom just had to beat you in the consolation matchup. So
That's okay. I'm glad that she beat me out of everyone.
well, there you go. And you end up losing to the eventual champion too. So that's another right thing to look at. You lost to the most worthy team.
Yeah.
Um, But now, I mean, so you've been getting better year by year, and this year you're tied for first, basically. I mean, it's you and Uncle Tom who are the only undefeated teams remaining through 3 weeks.
Yeah. Definitely a surprise, right? I mean, those of you that know me, right, like I do not follow any sport as closely as any of my direct relatives. And so it's like Sunday at like 4:17, I'm like, oh, I should probably check on my team. How are we doing? And I pull it up expecting, right? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Pull it up. I'm like, maybe I'm hanging in there. And then if I'm winning, I'm like, oh, good job, team. And then I usually like walk by and the game's on and I like look at the TV and I'm like, whoa, Zach Charbonnet. And then I just like keep going. Like, if my team's playing and I see somebody or in the background, Drake London, I'm like, yeah, Drake. And I keep doing the dishes. Like I am not watching the game at all, except for when they mess up. I always seem to watch when they mess up. Gosh darn it.
Isn't that always how it works,
How it
right?
goes.
When your players just doing their absolute worst is when they're showing it like right on red zone or right on the main screen of the TV.
Yeah.
It's always
Or
how it works.
John will be like, so we don't want him to throw it to that guy, but we really need this one very specific guy to get it into the end zone. And then we like look at the TV and it's like they do a substitution and that guy that we need like runs off the field. And we're like, what? And then the one guy that we needed to not score scores. And you're like, gosh darn it. But that's how it goes.
That's fantasy. It can be brutal, absolutely, but it
Yes.
can also be favorable. And in fact, based on the way your team's performed so far, what were your initial early thoughts on the draft? Like, I mean, did you get what you wanted? Were there certain players you were had high hopes on getting, but just couldn't get it? Maybe you missed it by like a pick or so, or I mean, how did everything turn out for you the way you hoped?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna lie, John helped me a lot in the research on my draft. And so, what it looked like was John did extensive research on players, right? We looked at the national age average for the NFL. I think it's 26 and a half, 27 and a half, something like that. I don't know. Is that one of your fun questions for me at
I
the
mean,
end?
it wasn't a fun question, but it was a fun fact. I was going to say the average NFL age is 26 years, 8 months, and 23 days to be specific. So
Yes,
you were very close.
I was close. I knew it was, yeah, right around there. So thank you for the confirmation. So John did all of this extensive research. There was a spreadsheet, and then the draft did happen during um bedtime for our kids. So I like preemptively picked all of my people in order, and I just went off vibes. That's what I went on. I was like, that guy sounds good. Yes, and that's literally how it was. For some reason, I really wanted Amon-Ra St. Brown because I had him last year,
Hmm.
and he like had a breakout season, and he was doing really well. And I really love the Lions story. I know that you're a Packers
All
fan.
good. They're lovable.
Like, so I was cheering for them last year, and as much as I love Kansas City, and when they win, it's better for me because the people around me are happy. I'm like, I'm kind of ready for somebody new. I hope my coworkers didn't hear me. Right. So I just like I liked that the Lions kind of were nobody like for the last 10 years, and then they've like shot up. So I'm rooting for them. So and Amon-Ra St. Brown was in the receiver special, right? On Netflix.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I feel like I know him a little bit after watching that, but then I didn't get him. So, but I did get Jahmyr Gibbs, so I'm excited that I had him. Um, but yeah, so the hardest part of the draft though for my team was honestly the backup quarterback position because once you get to the backups, it's everyone over 26 years, 8 months, and 23 days, right? So I feel like I'm lucky that I grabbed Trevor Lawrence, especially with Jordan Love going out so early in the season. And I really hope that he comes back this week. So yeah, that was probably the hardest spot. For whatever reason, running backs always seem like the hardest spot too. Maybe this year it wasn't as hard as in the past, but I just remember I think it was the year I was the oddballs. John was like, "There's like -2 running backs with odd numbers." I'm like, "Well, I guess we're just gonna have to suck it up." So maybe that is true because I did better with the even Stevens. So yeah, but
Good
that's
insight there. Yeah.
yes, that was the only difficulty I perceived in the draft. I'm very happy with my team so far. My kicker, I I think I drafted Kick Fearson. That's what I call him.
Kick
Kick
Fearson.
Fearson. And then he didn't do well, and so we picked up. John helped me figure out how to do a trade. I still
Oh,
need to do that. Was it the Rams kicker? I
yeah,
don't know who I
McCarty.
picked up. Yeah, and then that week 2, he didn't do very well. He just didn't have a lot of attempts. And the Cincinnati kicker went off. And so I was like, well, I want him again. And then we were like watching the Rams this next week. And John was like, so that guy did really good this week. And your guy was kind of hum ho, but he did better than the first week. And I was like, okay, well, now he's on track to have a great week next week. So we're just going to keep him. We're going to ride it out. And I'm cheering for him. I'm putting a lot of good vibe energy into him, right? Pray for him every night. I'm like, he's going to 15 points. Let's go.
Yeah, it's been a weird year for kickers, and yeah, that
Yeah.
just seems to be the one. I guess you can consider quarterback too, but that would be considered the one position on your team that's hasn't really performed that well. But it's still early season, so who knows? Maybe the rest of the season, Kick Fearson will put some fear into opposing fantasy lineups. So, but yeah, but going back to the average age of teams, so like I said, 26 years, 8 months, and 22 days for the entire NFL. What do you think the average age of your roster is?
Ooh. So so for those listening, right, like I asked Paul to send me the questions in advance because my knowledge of football is this much. So I was like, I gotta do something. And so when you said you had some fun questions, I was like, what is this gonna be? So I took some notes. I Googled the age and the birth date of all of my players. And
Oh,
I know that the most popular year of birth on my team is 1999, followed closely by 2000. So math, what would that be? 25? Is that
close.
most 25?
It's a little bit, I mean, it's a little off, but so for your team specifically, it's 24.27
Ah, okay.
years. So
I guess that makes
less
sense because yeah.
less than 1 year off, but still, yeah. And so I guess, I mean, you said you did some research on your team, so I guess you might know the answer to these. Who is the oldest member on your team? How old is he? And who's the youngest member on your team? And how old is he?
Yes, I'm looking at my notes. DJ Moore is the oldest member of my team. He was born in 1997, right?
Yes, but there was another player actually on your roster currently that was born in November of 96.
Who's on my roster? Who did I miss? Oh, 96, Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk,
There he is. He's on the
27.
bench. He's on the bench.
Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't scroll down far enough. Might be. But you asked about the youngest player, right?
Yep,
Mir Gibbs. What
correct.
a baby. Listen, I still, when I see students apply to the university and I'm like, you were born with a like zeros, no nines. I'm like, my goodness, I'm old. Ah. So when I saw his birthday, I was like, baby Jameer.
Baby Jameer.
So that's what I call him. Big baby Jameer. I
It
don't
is
know if that's appropriate, but that's what I call him.
That's funny. It is crazy though, because yeah, he is only 22 years old, but he's been killing it so far, and he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Oh,
Obviously, hopefully he stays healthy. But yeah, I mean
yes.
that it's just crazy how successful he's been at 22. Like not many NFL players, especially at the premium position like running back, like it's very hard to do. Um, yeah, and then I guess final question, just based on your team in general. Um, Whenever you go through a situation like an injury or someone gets, I don't know, it's just someone's not performing up to speed and you don't want to keep playing them every week. Do you feel the need to really follow that? Like if it's like very obvious, oh, I need a new tight end, just as like a
Yeah.
hyper, what's the word?
Hypothetical. Yeah.
Hypothetical question. If you're like, oh, that tight end that's available is really good, but oh, he's 28. Oh, it's kind of old. Like, how much of a hardliner are you on this? Like, are you like all in on this age thing, or are you more lenient on like, oh, if it's 28, 29, maybe make an exception, or is this like, no, has to be 27 or less?
Yeah. That is a really good question. In the past, I've stuck to it. And the one time I didn't, right? The nice guys team, I
Hmm.
picked up Derek Carr and his picture, he was like, and John was like, he's a nice guy. He goes to church, he eats Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, but he's not smiling. And then we picked him up, terrible week. And I said, never again, never again. But with this, I don't know. I haven't thought through that, right? I probably should have like set a line of like if they turn 27 halfway through the season, which I'm pretty sure isn't Christian Kirk
He's
27?
he's already 27. Yeah, him and DJ Moore are both 27.
Oh, DJ Moore?
Hmm.
Well, gotta leave him on the roster.
I feel
Well,
like if they're like if it's the overwhelming majority of your team that's under the average, that's you know that's just me personally.
yeah.
Obviously, it's your team. You can do however you want.
And that might have been, I gotta look, right? Are they what position does Christian Kirk play?
Wide receiver,
Wide receiver, thank you. Um, and who's this other person? DJ Moore, is he a running back?
wide receiver.
He's a wide receiver. Well, maybe the average age of wide receivers is older. I don't know. Because maybe we looked at the like all of the younger options. That's a long answer for I will try my best to stick below 27 and younger. Even if they're very good, I will do
Wow,
my best. Because it's the principle, right? Like
that's true.
I just feel like I want to stick to that and it's kind of like my thing for whatever reason. So if that's the thing I chose, we're gonna try and stick to it as much as we can. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
good. Kudos to
we'll,
you.
we'll try it out.
And it's been working so far. So
Yes.
you have that.
I probably should have put their positions down on my little cheat sheet.
Oh, it's all right.
I know
Um,
most of them. Just not those two, apparently.
Absolutely. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing the screen now. Can you see? And I don't know if I didn't even ask Adrian or John last time. I'm just assuming that they were able to see what I'm seeing, but can you see what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can.
good, good. I wanted to make sure because the first 2 weeks I kept thinking to myself, wait a minute, like did Adrian even know what I was referring to, or did John even? I guess so. So that's good. Got that confirmation. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So looking at the standings, obviously, like I said, you and Tom are the front runners so far, both undefeated, both having good starts to the season. Then you got this doing pretty well. Top half of the league group of Nell, Stad, John, your hubby and Garrett slash Theo. And then we have this, you know, team, no time to panic yet, but obviously they need to improve. You got Ben, Carol, and Adrian. And then obviously we got the two poopers down here, me and Mom. Uh, yeah, why am I running this podcast? Why aren't you running this podcast, Kerri? You're clearly better.
Did
I'm
you
just
not
kidding.
just hear me ask you the position of two of my players? And
That is true.
that is why.
But yeah, poor mom and I, we're just down here. And you know what? I'm just gonna, you know, it's been a rough year and a few weeks for me last year. I'm in that trough right now. I was in the peak a couple years ago and now I'm just down in the trough economics, if none of you understood that reference. But also looking at the standings too down here, points four, obviously that's more of an indicator of how good these teams are. Like me and mom obviously are the worst two. Like our teams are not scoring at all, whereas Tom, you're actually like fourth, but it's not that much of a
No,
difference. So, but then points against, you've been kind of fortunate in the fact that no one's
I
really
know.
scoring against you.
I was looking at that like multiple weeks. Like if I had played like half of the other people, I would have lost. So I'm like, I feel like lucky, right? Like obviously there's some skill, but it's all based on how your players play. But I'm like Carol went off this week, and I'm like, week one, like she would have creamed me, you know? Like
Yeah.
so I feel pretty lucky in that regard.
Yeah, a lot of fantasy is just, the matchups, the luck in terms of who you're playing, when you're playing them. And it's just you're in a really nice spot having faced me and and a few others that have struggled when you play them. So yeah, it's a little bit of luck, but it's also, don't kid yourself too. You're also the fourth highest scoring, which is good. You're in the top half of scoring. Your players are doing pretty well, considering the fact that your starting quarterback got hurt too. So
Yeah.
overall, you just have a good team and you've had some good luck, but you've also you know, you also have some good matchups ahead where I can see your team doing pretty well as well. And then also just looking at after John and I talked last week, there were a few trades that happened, so kind of big deal. We got early trades going on. Me and Dad, I traded him Travis Kelce in return for Jordan Mason and Jake Ferguson. Now, all the Taylor Swift fans out there, I can't, we're all I don't know if they're the reason to blame for Travis's struggles. I'm not. I'm just kidding. But
We've
yeah,
heard it all around here.
he has not been the same so far this season, and
I think it's his haircut.
it is. I mean, yeah, his hair.
He
I
looks
don't
like a
even.
Mario brother.
He totally does. That mustache, the way his hair looks
Maybe
on the
he's gonna
top.
be in a movie. Maybe they're doing like a live remake for it.
Ooh, maybe.
And
You never
Taylor's
know.
writing the soundtrack.
Maybe Taylor's going to involve him in like a future music video and she needs him to look a certain way. You never
Ooh.
know. But yeah, he had been struggling and I needed some real running back help, especially since Christian McCaffrey got hurt and he's still on IR and who knows when he'll come back. So I just figured Dad had a lot of running back depth, so I had to trade for him. And then I figured Jake Ferguson's is a decent tight end enough where he can replace him. And he had a good week, but it sadly just wasn't enough for me this past week. And then this one, I was really boggled by this trade, and I'm pretty sure others were too.
Yeah.
Adrian traded away the best quarterback to the best team in Tom. Okay. Yeah, let's just hand the best team, the best quarterback in fantasy, Josh Allen,
Hmm.
and he gave away Zay Flowers. Now, he did get Kyler Murray, who's younger, more mobile than Josh Allen, even though Josh Allen's pretty mobile too, but he's got more potential. But then he also got some depth with Devin Singletary and Jalen Waddle. Now, I think Adrian, with Cooper Kupp being out, actually, wait, no, Cooper Kupp is on John's team. What am I even saying? He is Puka. That's right. With Puka Nakua being out, he probably just figured maybe Jalen would work out, but then with Tua being out, it's a mess. So it didn't look good for him this week because Josh Allen went off against Jacksonville and Kyler Murray kind of struggled a bit versus Detroit. But it's just one week. We'll see how it works out the rest of the season. I was definitely shocked by that trade for sure. I wasn't sure if anyone else was. If you were, I knew John was. I think Dad was too. But yeah.
Hearing that
All
I
right.
need to try and draft Josh Allen next year when I have the old timers.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to ask you that. I was going to ask you what was the idea for next year, and of course,
Yeah,
old
well,
timers. You just got it. You
hold the
went from nice,
26, 8 months and 23 days.
and
27 and up.
that might be hard. They're definitely like
I
it's
know.
a lot of you don't see many old running backs, so that might be a hard one to
I might
find.
have like a 26 or a 25-year-old running back.
That might need to
Maybe
be
to my
your
wide receivers.
that might
They're
need to be your DJ Moore, CJ or DJ
yeah.
Moore, Christian Kirk threshold right there for next year.
Yes.
And then obviously looking at the scoreboard for week 3, we have, sorry, I'm very distracted. Someone just knocked on my door. I'm not sure why. But anyway, week 3, we have John Lopp beating me, sadly. Tom just absolutely manhandling Ben. Ben actually had a pretty good week, but it's just like you said, going back
No.
to the fortune thing, right? You know, he just had a bad week, bad matchup against a hot Tom team. So you know what? This is kind of unprecedented. This guy keeps knocking on my door, so
Okay.
I'll be
It's
right
okay.
back. Sorry for the
Yep.
delay, everyone.
Paul's answering his door. We could say whatever we want, and he won't hear it until he plays the replay. Unless he fast forwards through this part or cuts it out. Anyways, I think Paul is doing a fantastic job with this podcast. Good job, Paul.
All right, sorry about that. My neighbor was trying to sell me something. I'm like, okay,
Was it
no,
anything good?
I don't know. He was just like, I mean, I just opened the door and was like, hey, I'm kind of in the middle of something right now. I'm kind of busy. He's like, oh, sorry, sorry. So yeah, sorry about that, everyone. But yeah, so Uncle Tom beat Ben. Sad for Ben because he had a pretty nice performance.
I don't know. He's the fourth highest scoring team, I think, just looking at it.
For this week. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
could have
sorry,
easily beaten.
Ben.
Yeah, he could have easily beaten,
Come
a few
on.
other people. You you beat Dad, and it was very fortunate because you had Zach Charbonnet, who is usually back a running back, but he had a really nice game against Miami. I mean, Miami's run defense is pretty bad anyway, but 25 points is very nice. And then obviously the Packers defense really helped you out too against Tennessee, and that was a fun game by the way. That Dad, myself, Mom, Carol, and even
Ah,
Uncle John went to, so we had a blast. That was fun.
nice.
Always good. And then Carol finally going off. She was struggling a bit. She got 147 points, second highest to Tom. Thank God she didn't play
Good
Tom. That
job, Carol.
could you imagine if she had played Tom this, this past week and she went 0-3 because of that? That would have been so heartbreaking. But luck,
Really.
yeah, luckily that was not the case. And then poor mom barely losing to Garrett by 3 points. And I'll go over that a little bit more soon, but she had quite a few different opportunities where, one or two things go differently, could have gone the other way. And like I said at the beginning, she's been probably the most or the least luckiest person in fantasy this year so far with all of her injuries and everything. Um, but yeah, it was I kind of went over everything really quickly though. Was there anything in these games last week, maybe in your game, maybe in a different game that you saw that really surprised you or really caught your eye at all?
No, I
No,
can't lie to you.
it's all good. I mean, I I hope for your sake. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has kind of struggled a little bit. So with Jordan
Yeah,
Love coming back, I mean, he's still kind of questionable, but we'll see how it goes. Um, but overall, like I said, your team's doing pretty well. You got very fortunate. So, um, I think with my matchup with John, I was just, my receivers struggled. Like, what's new? My receivers always struggle, but especially this past week against John, and obviously CJ Stroud not doing well against Minnesota. I didn't really see that one coming. Minnesota looks a lot better than I thought they'd be.
I know.
Yeah. One other, and then going back to Mom's matchup real quick, she had this struggle in week 2 where she's like, oh, do I start Jackson Smith-Njigba or Tank Dell? Because when AJ Brown was out that Sunday morning, I was like, oh, one of these two should do it. She went with Dell, and Smith-Njigba was on her bench, and that would have won her that game. So she made that wrong decision. And then this week, she goes with Smith-Njigba, who gets 6.9 points, leaves Dell on her bench, and if she does that differently, that would have won her that game. So it's like, oh,
Oh
mom,
man.
she's so close to being 2-1. So I feel kind of bad for her in that sense. She's barely losing out even with all these injuries. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a struggle bus for her. Um, but yeah, looking at the scoring leaders so far this season, obviously it's crazy because Uncle Tom having the best running back and the best quarterback in fantasy. So that's kind of a little, and plus with him just being handed Josh Allen. No, I'm not gonna say handed, but Adrian pretty much gave Josh Allen to Tom, and it kind of shocked all of us, but it's not surprising that to see him leading the league with these two top performers. But um, and then just looking at the matchups for this week, me versus mom, we're both 0 and 3, so something's got to give, right? Now watch us end up tying to the second decimal.
No,
That would
no.
be that would be pretty sad, but no, one of us is gonna win. Um, I hate to say this, Mom, but I hope I win. Obviously, I know you hope you win too, but just tough. 0 and 3. Someone's gonna go 0 and 4, and it's just gonna be brutal. John versus Dad. You got two and one teams. Um, obviously, I think Dad's got Jaden Daniels, and he looked pretty good against Cincinnati on Monday night. So I think he found something really good there. Um, and I also just think his receivers right now are more reliable than John's because Garrett Wilson is playing Denver, and Denver really surprised everyone beating Tampa Bay in Tampa over the weekend. I think their pass defense is a lot better than most people would think. So,
What
um,
do you think of Dak this year?
it's odd because he had a great week last week against Baltimore. I mean, obviously the first half of the second half wasn't that good, but he went off in the fourth quarter and he almost came back and beat the Ravens single-handedly. Um, but I think things will start to turn around for him. That's usually what Dak's MO is. He usually starts off a little slow and then he'll start to gain momentum midway through the season. And then by the time like mid-December comes is when he's playing at his best. And then usually by the end of the season, that's when he starts to fall apart. And then the playoffs, that's playoff
Yeah.
Dak. So
Mm,
so I
yeah.
think I think he's got a good matchup versus the Giants this week. So I see Dak bouncing back or not bouncing back, but having another good week this week. So, and I think John's running backs are pretty good, but in the end, I think Dad's gonna win this matchup. Um, Ben versus Carroll, two 1 and 2 teams. You don't want to go 1 and 3. You want to go 2 and 2 at this point. Ben just had bad luck. Carroll obviously had her best, she won last week, having a great week. So can she continue that success? I don't know if Amon-Ra St. Brown will do well against Seattle. I think that's going to be a big factor for her because Seattle's got one of the best pass defenses in football. So your beloved Amon-Ra might not do well this week. Just a heads up.
No.
Yeah, but and same thing with Ben a little bit too. I think Kamara. I mean, I know he's questionable, but he'll probably still play. The Falcons' run defense is pretty good, so I wouldn't be shocked if Kamara and ETN, for that matter, have down weeks. So this could be close. I think I'll give this one to Ben though, just because Jefferson going against the Packers, even though I like the Packers, I don't know, something scares me about this Vikings team. It feels like they're going to be very dominant for a while. So I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. And then Kyle Pitts, Saints have given up a lot of points at tight ends this year so far. So I think he might be a sneaky good play this week for Ben.
Yeah.
And then Tom versus Garrett, little father-son rivalry. Will Garrett be the one to push Tom off the top and make you the sole undefeated team if you do end up beating Adrian?
Oh
Uh,
no.
we'll
I'm
see.
nervous about Adrian. That's his team.
I mean, Tom, like I said, best quarterback and running back, so I think he'll be fine. But yeah, going to your matchup against Adrian, what specifically about Adrian are you nervous about?
I don't know. I feel like was it last year? I feel like he starts off really strong. And so yeah, I feel like his team is gonna pull through and win and give us our first loss. And we will be okay. We will bounce back. I'm just not going into this week expecting to win. like
Level-headed.
preparing for a loss. And then when I check the scores at 4:17 on Sunday afternoon, if we're winning, I'll be like, oh, this is good news. This is a surprise. We're trying to stay humble.
There you go. That's a healthy attitude. I like that. Always, keeping everything realistic, but also hoping for the best, right? That's a
Yeah.
good way. It's a good outlook to have. But I honestly think you have a good chance.
Thanks. I think
You're
I gotta, yeah, I'm gonna move. Do you think I should play Jordan Love?
I mean, I would love I love the Vikings defense looks pretty intimidating, but I still think he would be a better option than Trevor. That's just my opinion because the Jaguars just haven't looked good at all offensively
I
this year.
know.
And I would probably go with a little bit of an injured Jordan Love over Trevor Lawrence at this point. That's just me. But obviously we won't know. I mean, definitely keep your eye out Sunday morning on the actives and inactives to see if Love's going to play because then once if he's officially active, you'll be able to make that change right then and there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I think Brian Robinson might be a sneaky good play this week. The Cardinals' run defense is not that good, and
No.
your Seahawk running backs are going against the Lions, who have the number one ranked run defense in football. So just a little bit of you don't have to listen to me, but that's just something I noticed. So,
That's good. Thank you.
all right. So, um, yeah, it looks like our time's running short here, but I do appreciate you coming on. That was some great insight you provided earlier about your team and how you go about each season, with the specific traits you have for your roster. So, definitely thought that was a treat. Is there anything you'd like to say to the family before we sign off tonight?
I'm just glad that we do this, right? I think that it's really fun. We get to do this as an extended family. I appreciate all the funny messages that come through on the group text. It always seems to be like when I'm teaching class, and so my phone is like going off, and my students are like, "Do you need to get that?" I'm like, "No, it's just Uncle Tom asking about a trade." So it provides some humor too. So I appreciate all of you. Looking forward to whenever we can all be together again next. But until then, on Sunday afternoons, we'll battle each other until the end of the season.
All right, there we go. Please beat Adrian.
We will
And
do
hope
our best.
and
We
hopefully,
like I can do anything about it.
oh yeah, totally lead the team, lead the young guns.
Big baby Jameer
Big baby Jameer, that's
and
right.
McPherson.
Kick Fearson, my favorite nickname of the week. I love it. I love probably the season. That was pretty clever. I'm not gonna lie. All
Thanks.
right. Well, thank you so much, Kerri, for coming on. That was great. Um, yeah, I appreciate everyone for watching. Hopefully, you all have a good week this week, and everyone but Kerri and I, you all can lose. So
Thanks, Paul.
Even you, John, go
That's right.
dad.
You can lose, John.
All right. Have a
All
good night,
right.
everyone. Thank you
Love
so
you, bud.
much. Peace.